Welcome, everybody, to episode 237 of WordPress Weekly for Wednesday, June 8th, 2016. I'm your host, Jeff Chandler, joined by Marcus Couch. Marcus, what's up, my main man?
Hey, it's been a pretty fun week. Getting a lot of cool projects done, did a lot of WooCommerce work, and I've got a couple plugins related to that for the plugin picks of the week. How about you?
It's been an okay week outside of the Cavs being embarrassed in Oakland, California by the Warriors, but the game's going on right now. Looks like things are turning around. They finally woke up, so the week is probably going to end on a good note, hopefully.
Great. Excellent.
All right, so let's get into some WordPress news, shall we? Because we don't have
Absolutely
today. And late last week, the folks over at Security Research, they're primarily involved with security, finding exploits and whatnot, and reporting them. They discovered that the WP Mobile Detector plugin had an arbitrary file upload vulnerability, which was being actively exploited, which means the exploit information about it and how to use it was published before a patch was issued. That's big time. This plugin was active on more than 10,000 websites, and of course, like I said, I guess majority of the sites were infected with porn-related spam. How about that? The plugin's resizing script, which, believe it or not, had something to do with Tim Thumb. We know that Tim Thumb is bad. You don't want to have anything to do with Tim Thumb on your website. So the vulnerability was actually published on the plugin vulnerabilities website on May 31st. But according to security's log files, it looks like it's been actively exploited since May 27th. So the plugin was actually temporarily removed from the plugin directory since it hadn't been patched. Apparently, a lot of users, or somehow, some way, got news of this, and the active install count the other day went from 10,000 to 2,000, but now it's back up to 10,000 because it's been patched. There's a newer version now on the WordPress plugin directory, but if you use this plugin, again, it's WP Mobile Detector. You want to double check your websites to see if they've been hacked or if they have a weird directory, see if anything has been added or changed over the past, I'd say, week or two, and get it cleaned up because there's just this is one of these situations where just bad things happened with the wrong plugin.
Yeah, and let me talk about this plugin for just one bit. It's been out a while, and it's in higher revisions in terms of it's 3.7 as of the recording of this show. But I think the time has come to kind of sweep plugins like this away with responsive themes and all of that. I was just mentioning to you before the show, you looked at a particular landing page that I was building for the membership coach site, and I described to you how I built it, which is I built it mobile first. I built it mobile in every sense, and then expanded it out to desktop, and then added a couple graphics and things like that. And I'm working with a theme that can actually detect mobile devices, and I can even look in the customizer and see what it would look like on different devices. So I would, if you're using this plugin and you think you need it, try to do something without using this kind of plugin, because you see what kind of vulnerabilities it exposes.
Well, actually, I think you bring up a great point in that if you get a responsive theme that adjusts to different viewports, meaning tablets, mobile devices, and what have you, it can respond and show, display things appropriately. That's built into the theme, and you don't need plugins like this. And then this is the response of a mobile theme or a mobile design first movement has been, it's been taking place now within the past 2 or 3 years. So I'd say plugins like this definitely not needed if you use a more of a modern type WordPress theme that is or one of the features is built as responsive. And I don't know about you, Marcus, but when I'm ever browsing a website that is showing me the mobile version and there's a link to say view the desktop version, I almost always want to see the desktop version, because either there's too much information that's lost, or there's a certain aspect to the site that I really want to get to, but for whatever reason the mobile version doesn't have it. So I think if you just get a responsive design, that takes care of the issue of having a mobile detector, or even those plugins that add a mobile theme specifically for phones. Yeah, I think you make a great point. Those are not needed anymore. People should use a responsive theme instead of these plugins.
Yeah, it seems like it's a patch. Like I've looked at tons of client sites after somebody, in some Asian country or something, is a designer for them and they paid whatever for the site. Now I come in and I have to fix X, Y, and Z. And I see plugins like this hooked up where just appropriate guidance in the relationship between vendor and client with a good designer and a good developer would totally stray away from anything like this. You'd absolutely want to make responsive themes. So again, you see the more plugins that you have, the more exposure that you have to these kinds of hacks and malware and things.
Yeah, and even if you have a plugin that's deactivated, the code still exists on your site and still could possibly be exploited. So, I mean, if you're not using any plugins out there, or you have this one there and maybe you disabled it because you upgraded to a responsive theme and maybe you forgot about it, well, you're still kind of vulnerable if you have that code there. So just delete the plugins you don't use. And that's I kind of have to take my own advice because I test a lot of plugins, and when I review them and I sort of leave them up on the website, so I actually have to go take my own advice after the show and just go delete them all.
That's true. Yeah, it's unless you absolutely need the plugin on there for a reason. If you're planning on activating it within a few days or whatever, then you can leave it on there. But for the most part, you should maybe just take a note of what plugins you have, maybe even save the link in a spreadsheet or something like that to where it is in the repository. And then the next time you want that plugin, you can just go back to the repository and get the most recent version.
Which is actually a great reason to use favorites, because you can mark plugins as favorites now or to be tied to your account.
Right.
There you go. You just click the favorites tab and all your plugins that are marked as favorites show up there and you can install them right from the back end of WordPress, which is really convenient.
I reviewed a plugin not too long ago, Jeff, that actually had it to where you could add your own favorites to the add new plugin feature.
Oh, okay.
I forget what it was. I'm gonna have to go back and look. But you put your own, you put your slug in or what your username was on the repository, and it would pull that data and see what your favorites were. So you could keep them in your favorites and then install it and know, with a specific set of favorites what you have. So it's pretty nice.
Nice. So any developers out there who work with Jetpack on a daily or routine basis, and maybe you haven't been too impressed with the inline documentation or how to find resources on how specific filters and functions works, great news. There's a brand new website that was launched called developer.jetpack.com, which is a searchable code reference for actions, filters, and features found within the plugin. So you can actually see new hooks that have been added in recent releases. You could toggle different versions. The actual website itself is pretty nice. And this way you don't have to actually look inside of the code or in some obscure web page somewhere to find out how a specific feature works. Now, they're still working on adding a lot of things and content to these pages, but for the most part, it's pretty well off. And they've taken a lot of inspiration from the WordPress code reference, which is at developer.wordpress.org, where you can pretty much do the same thing, look for filters and actions and hooks and find explanations as to how they work and what they do, including their parameters. So just a tip out there that if you're maybe have a question or a concern as to what features or filters are available in Jetpack, or maybe how to enhance it through those items, definitely check out developer.jetpack.com.
Yes, and I don't have much comment because I don't use it.
So the first beta for WordPress 4.6 is, it's coming up really soon here. I think within the next 1 or 2 weeks. And then that's when we're going to start cranking away. We're really going to have to get people involved with testing the various features in the new version. And one of those new features, which is highly likely to make it in WordPress 4.6, is called Shiny Updates. And Shiny Updates was originally proposed, I think, back in WordPress 4.2, and that's the one that Drew James was leading the release on. And what it does is it sort of, instead of clicking the update button and you go through this screen and you see the processes of the things that are being updated and then you have to click the back button, they usually call this the bleak screen of sadness. Instead, you just click a button and boom, like within a second or two, it's done. Everything's been upgraded, and you don't see this list of pages or list of items that have taken place in order, the upgrade process, and you're not redirected to a different page. It just happens almost instantaneously, which is really funny in a way, because when I talked to Konstantin Oberlin, the man, one of the gentlemen who was overseeing this project, he said it's slightly faster, but it's not as fast as I think it is, yet it looks that way just because of the animation and how quick it goes from an update pending to the action being complete. It's I don't know, maybe it's like a mind game or something, but I very much appreciate this new enhanced way of updating things. And to me, it gives WordPress more of a modern feel, where you click on update plugins and you see the tasks that are performing. It feels old school to me, like a couple of years ago, very old software. But I like just clicking the button and boom, it's done. And at some point in WordPress 4.2, it was added to the plugins page, and there wasn't enough time and testing to add it to the themes. When in 4.6, they're going to be adding it to themes. It's going to be on I think a different version of the plugins page. It's also going to work with translation files, so you'll be able to do a quick update of core translations and everything else like that. So if there is going to be a feature in WordPress 4.6 that was going to be my favorite one, it would be this.
Yeah, I do it from the plugins page anyway, so it's nice that way, where you're not doing that. And it's nice that they're going to incorporate themes like that as well. I would wonder, is that implied on the entire updates page itself? You're not going to have to individually go to themes or plugins therein? You get to just go click on the update little recycle thing up at the top?
Well, you won't be able to upgrade them. I mean, that's just a notification for how many total updates you have. But I believe, once you click on the update on that page, it'll take you to the update core, or the actual updates, that PHP page that lists everything. And then I think you'll still have to click on individual items, but it'll be a much quicker process, and you won't be redirected. You'll be able to do it. Everything should just be quicker. Now, I'm probably going to have to, once 4.6 beta 1 rolls around, you and I will give Shiny Updates a test drive and report back our experience with it, and give our listeners a heads up on what to expect. But I think this is the Shiny Updates process. I think is one of those enhancements to WordPress that's small, but I think could save people a lot of time, especially when it comes to managing WordPress, because you're not having to see all those things. You just click a button and it's done. I mean, that's what I want to see more of WordPress become, is you just click something and it's done. I don't want to have to go through all these steps.
Are they doing anything with the media library at all?
No.
What the hell?
No, not yet. But I know there's some things that have been talked about, and there's some other projects afoot, but not in this release that I know
Bummer.
of.
It sadly needs it.
I
work on this membership site that's got 50,000 users in it, and I have in the media library every one of their pictures. That's 50,000 images, and I need to be able to just group it and move it around and put a hashtag on it or whatever it happens to be to pull up that specific set, and it's just not happening, and we need help with that.
Yeah. So, eventually, soon, at some point, maybe like in 10 years. I don't know. But I hear you.
Do it by hashtags or whatever it happens to be. That's got to be the way to do it.
So congratulations to our friends and listeners, if we have any, out in Ukraine. It's actually the first official WordCamp is happening this year in Kiev, Ukraine, in September 2016. It will actually happen at the Income Business Center in Kiev, September 24th through the 25th. And apparently for the past couple of years, the WordPress community in Ukraine has had conferences and meetups organized under the name WP Kitchen, which I've heard and seen from time and again. But the organization team out there The WordCamp team includes 3 members from the WP Kitchen team and 3 additional organizers. So they have enough people to organize and put on the event there. And according to this article by Sarah Gooding, looks like they're planning for 250 attendees. There's an English information page available for potential attendees and speakers to learn more about the event. And apparently, the venue is within walking distance of hotels, shopping centers, Airbnb apartments, and a metro station. So you can travel around if you want. Hopefully, any of the when I think of Ukraine, I know they've had it pretty bad there. A couple of months ago, I believe, where there's a lot of fighting and things going on. I think over near the Russian border. So hopefully, none of that takes place, and any of our listeners out there who plan on going can stay safe. But congratulations to Kyiv, Ukraine, and actually they're going to have their first WordCamp, so that would be pretty cool. I wonder, we'll have to see if it gets live streamed. That would be interesting.
That would be, and I was just looking at it like, man, how long would it take me to get there? And
too long.
The answer from LAX to Kyiv is 16 hours.
Yeah, not for me. I would not want to stay in a metal tube for that long.
Yeah, well, we can watch it on WordPress.tv.
Quite possibly. So speaking of WordCamps, and more specifically after parties, there was a pretty interesting conversation that cropped up earlier this week, and it was based around an article published on Red Queen Coder on the pervasiveness of alcohol in the programming community. And WordPress core contributor Gary Pendergast published a question on Twitter, and he asked, has anyone been to WordCamps that remove the alcohol focus from after parties? And, thinking back to, I've attended a number of WordCamps, and every after party I've pretty much ever been to had alcohol of some sort, whether that be beer, or sometimes there's liquor, and usually it's at a bar or a restaurant. Every now and then the after party is at the venue, but there's always alcohol involved. But at the same time, I also can't think of an after party I've been to where there weren't non-alcoholic options available as well, whether that be water, soda, or what have you. So there was this discussion on whether should WordCamps be dry because alcohol excludes young people, certain religions, and other groups from participating in these after-party type social events. And as you can probably expect, when you start talking about prohibition type activities, people are going to passionately respond, no, do not take away the alcohol because that is not the issue. And the article received over 80 comments, and a lot of people saying that, a lot of people agree. Look, alcohol is a social lubricant where at the end of the day, it's nice as an adult to drink your favorite beverage of choice. A lot of times that's alcohol, so it could be a beer or a cocktail, and it sort of helps you unwind, brings you down a bit, and you can talk to people. But I know there are others out there who maybe go to these WordCamp after parties who don't drink, who maybe feel like peer pressured into that maybe they should, or there's this feeling of awkwardness, and they don't really have a great time there, and they feel excluded from the event because they don't drink. And I can see where that mindset would be coming from. So there was this argument of, well, why don't we try and at least put forth the idea out there that when WordCamp organizers are organizing an after party, that they making concerted extra effort to also provide non-alcoholic beverages as well. So it'd be water, juice, and colas, and then there's the whole discussion of what alcohol does to people and its effects, and even the name after party, which connotates everybody showing up and having a beer and partying. So there was even talk about maybe changing the word from after party to like a social gathering or what have you. But probably one of the most interesting things about this whole conversation is that so many people don't really have a problem with alcohol being consumed at the after party so much as the after party being in a venue with loud music. A lot of people agree that loud music was they totally dislike loud music over people being able to enjoy themselves with alcohol or whatnot. So I found that to be a bit humorous. But
Okay, I have an alternative.
sure.
And I'm with you there because you know what? There are a lot of youngsters, and let's take Tech
Yeah,
Bolts.
well,
Let's take him for example. He can't go to the bar. Nick.
Yeah, and I know that's a bummer because I've personally experienced this where we're going out as a group or something and kind of can't take somebody because they can't go into the establishment because they're not 21. Now, granted, this is after the after party. Most of the time, age really isn't a factor at the after party unless the after party venue is in a bar.
Right. So why don't we embellish a little bit on what Matt even loves, which is barbecue? Why not just always make it a bar? Oh, let's go to the WordCamp OC barbecue. This barbecue is going to be on the beach, right? Or it's maybe a barbecue cook-off between all the different WordCamps. Who's got the best or whatever. I mean, stuff like that would be more fun, I think, and you could still get that social interaction in that environment, and maybe we have beers or something like that. And I don't know. It just seems like that would make more sense to have that as kind of the finale. I don't know.
I think David Bissett, who helps organize and run WordCamp Miami, and he's very involved in the different WordCamps. I mean, he makes an excellent point where he says that WordCamps are local events and that organizers should know their local area and poll attendees for input on decisions. And if the organizers decide to not have alcohol, that's their choice. He says that he wouldn't question it if he was attending such event because he's not, he would assume that the decision was made due to various factors that he doesn't need to be privy to. But once there's no hard or fast rule here that could be strictly applied to all WordCamps.
And you have to look at you got to look at other concepts too, because every other conference you ever go to, they still have cocktails and open bar and all that, even on the expo floors, for crying out loud. So I don't know. I don't think it's that big of an issue. I guess it's a regional issue. Leave it up to the individual cities of, the organizers to decide what it is that their communities would most want and the age of the attendees.
Mm-hmm.
And that's data that they can get by, is that something that they can get with WordCamp ticket ordering?
Yeah, they could poll their attendees. So that you open it up for tickets, and then after a certain period of time, you poll all the people who have purchased tickets, send them an email because you have to get their email address during when you purchase the ticket, and you could poll them and say, hey, what are you interested in? Should we have alcohol? Or they could get that type of information from their attendees, I'd say rather easily if they put in the effort to.
Yeah, it's just a marketing cycle. That's all it is.
So the whole conversation, I want to make this a point where I want to make the point that there's not a suggestion and there's nothing that's being discussed at the WordCamp Central level to ban alcohol at WordCamps and WordCamp after parties. It was just an idea that was brought up from a member of the community, and I thought it made for an interesting discussion point. And there's a lot of people who participated on the tavern in the conversation, and it was very civil. In fact, it was pretty cool. And even if WordCamp Central decided, okay, we're not going to support in any of the budgets to pay for bar tabs, it's not like the drinking wouldn't happen anyways. People would find a way to drink. And I would say there's probably quite a few groups of people within the WordPress community who would, instead of going to the official after party, would just gather and go somewhere else. And that would be a drag because the whole notion of the after party is for everybody who's attending an event to get together, network, and talk in a relaxed atmosphere. And making it dry would actually be more exclusive than just leaving it the way it is.
Yeah, I'm cool with the way it is.
Me too, and I'm gonna need a drink after this show after talking about that. So our friends over at Postmatic, you remember those two, right?
Oh, yeah.
Jason and them. They came out with a big release. So Postmatic 2 is available, and some of the really cool features that it comes with is comment intelligence, where instead of sending emails for every comment, it'll actually use machine learning, and it will review the content within a comment, and the ones that it feels are highly relevant to the post, it will send an email about and notify subscribers. But if, let's say, there's a comment of +1 or somebody saying, hey, nice post, those will not generate an email. So not only does it should improve things for your subscribers, but that's one less email that's sent out and charged to your account. So that's pretty cool.
So all you marketers out there, learn to crack that algorithm so you can get your comments emailed to everyone in their list.
And this release also brings about email digest. So if you're a website, I guess kind of like the Tavern that publishes multiple times a day, readers sometimes don't want to be pinged constantly or be bombarded with individual emails. Instead, they want to have a digest where they could get one email and see everything that's been published that day, or maybe just during the week, and you have that ability to do so. And there's Postmatic 2 actually comes with about 5 different templates you can use to manipulate how the email looks. And I did a test run on the Tavern with the modern template, and it actually looked pretty nice. It's using the featured images we use, and the text looks pretty nice. You can see the number of comments. It's actually a really cool feature, and something that I think Marcus would be excited about if he was heavily into Postmatic is that there's now support for Zapier. And we had the Zapier folks on the show not too long ago, and Zapier is a service that has more than 500 application and service APIs. So using webhooks, when people subscribe or unsubscribe through Postmatic, you can have those actions trigger something into a different service, which is pretty cool.
Yes, and first it's pronounced Zapier. Remember,
Zapier.
It rhymes.
Zapier.
That's right. It rhymes with happier.
Okay. There you go. Happier Zapier. Got it.
Yeah. Remember when we had Wade on the show? He explained that to us.
Yeah. Well.
Yes, and boy, have they grown since the last time we had him on the show. Holy cow! He was kind of fringe, wasn't he, in WordPress? When we brought Wade, the CEO and creator of Zapier, on the show.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they've gone tenfold, I bet. I wonder if he'd be willing to come on the show, or maybe he's too busy for us now. Who knows? We are kingmakers on the show, Jeff.
So speaking of making it and doing some great things, Postmatic is about 1 year old. So back in, I think it was let's see, when was it here? Because it was last year in 2015. April is when Postmatic launched. And since that time, they've grown to have over 170,000 active users. Now, those are subscribers who are sending and receiving comments through its system. And one of the things that Jason said is that in the beginning, it was about testing a proof of concept to see if this would work. And now that they have sort of that confirmation that it works, one of the areas that they're really starting to focus on now is scaling the product to be fit for sites that receive 1,000 comments per post, or with 30 or so posts per day. So the big types of publishing websites out there that are generating a lot of content, both through articles and comments. So pretty cool. Congrats to Jason and them on this huge monumental release. I encourage everybody out there to check it out, because it's a free plugin. You can actually check it out for free and browse around and check out the new features, because they did a great job.
Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of those features they actually talked about on the show when we had them on the show when Postmatic 1 was still out. Yeah,
because one of the things we covered near the end of that show was what to expect in version 2.0, and lo and behold, they're people of their word.
There you go. Took a while, but you got it.
So one of the last stories I wanted to talk about kind of has nothing to do with WordPress, but I wanted to get Marcus's take on this because this is right up his alley.
Yeah.
But apparently, Stitcher, that we've sort of talked about a couple of times before, it's a distribution network for podcasts. This company called EW Scripts has acquired Stitcher for $4.5 million, and it's going to operate under Scripps' mid-roll media unit. So there you go. According to some of these stats here, Stitcher was streaming more than 65,000 podcasts from major publishers ranging from NPR to SNNBC to probably a couple of smaller podcasters as well.
Yeah, that's no big deal. That's marketing fluff. You and I could put a podcast player of NPR and all the rest of the podcasts and say, yes, we distribute it on the Tavern, right? Come on.
So I thought it was interesting where Stitcher, they have 8 million registered users and it's installed in about 50 car models. So that seems to be one of the popular ways, one of many ways people are consuming their audio and video content.
Yeah, well, okay, let's get down to it. First off, I know this from Todd Cochran, who runs Blueberry and
Raw Voice.
Yeah, and he said this because I'm friends with him on Facebook. He said that Stitcher only has 3.7% of the market, and in his words, sorry to bust our iTunes, it has shitty audio quality, in his terms. That's his quote. That's not me saying it. So I don't know. I love Stitcher because I mostly put it on a tab, a pinned tab within Chrome, and just, listen to podcasts and such. It always fails when it comes to trying to guess what I want. Like, it's always really stupid in terms of what it, because of the similar style. I do like the fact that it has continuation so that I can load it up on my phone via Bluetooth in the car and pick up exactly where I left off. That's nice. So if you like Stitcher out there, let me just tell you, this is probably headed for what every acquisition like this does, which is you just went from having a cool app to something that's in a unit of some other company in some shelf somewhere that can easily get cut, and some idiot in the boardroom just goes, how do we monetize this? Let's cram pre-rolls in this. And then you're going to have backlash and flack from the podcasters and the major companies like NPR and things like that go, hey, you're advertising against our content, which could, in some intentional or not circumstances, conflict with the podcaster's own sponsor. So it's an interesting play. It's been done before.
So there you go. And this isn't the first time Stitcher has been acquired. In fact, back in 2014, Scripps actually purchased Stitcher from Deezer, which was a French streaming company that acquired Stitcher back in 2014. So it's kind of, now it's at least a second exchange of hands for Stitcher. We'll see how long it sticks around at EW Scripps within their mid-roll unit. But just some tidbits, some FYI out there for anyone who's also into podcasting and using the Stitcher app. I thought maybe you'd like to know that.
Well, I'm glad I could share the insight that I had from the other side of it. And, it's a cool app, but in terms of podcasts, iTunes rules, and they probably always will as long as they control the phone market.
So there you have it. That's about it for this week's WordPress news of the week. And that only leaves us with one thing left to do, and that is your picks of the week.
Yeah, we need some kind of theme song for this, don't we?
Well, the last time we messed around with sounds, but we got people thinking we were a morning show.
No, we're not going to do that again, believe me. So the first plugin pick of the week is for WooCommerce. It's called Download Now WooCommerce, and there's something interesting attached to the tail end of this, which it basically lets users download products from the product page without having to go through the checkout process. So if you have a free item, like a free ebook or a digital product or something like that, and the price is $0 in WooCommerce, and you set the price to $0, instead of the add to basket or add to cart or whatever the terminology you use, it's going to be replaced with a download now button. So it just cuts one part completely out of the process and still allows you to use WooCommerce. Now, I noticed that just one day after this WooCommerce add-on was released, that an EDD, Easy Digital Downloads version of the exact same thing was released for their plugin as well. So it's just interesting to see how those good ideas replicate themselves within the WordPress community.
Nice. Yeah, and it's another one of those things like the plugin we mentioned last week, where you can automatically log someone in after they register, just sort of remove some steps in the process.
Right.
This one removes the whole having to add the basket, and then you get the option to download it where you can just do it right there.
Exactly. So the next one is also a WooCommerce add-in. It is called WooCommerce Payment Gateway per Product. Now, there's payment gateways like Stripe and PayPal and things like that. And generally, you can let the user decide. But what if you wanted to, say, have a really high dollar one that would only go to PayPal or maybe only go to Stripe so you get the money quickly? And you get to decide on a per product basis where that payment was allowed to check out. And now you can do it with this add-in. So it's called WooCommerce Payment Gateway per Product. And finally, if you want to hide prices completely, this is kind of a membership type of maybe plugin, but it's also works just for generating leads. It's called Hide Price Until Login. And what it does is it hides the price of the products and the product detail page until the user's logged in. So you don't even get to see it until that specific time. Or you can also make it so logging in or being logged out don't matter. You can have a special password that somebody enters in, and then they can go in and buy the particular product. Now that's really cool for like fan clubs and pre-sales and all of that, where you email a pre-sale out to your biggest clients in your list, and then they get to unlock the deal and nobody else does. Really neat little marketing ploy. So it's called Hide Price Until Login. And those, Jeff, are my plugin picks of the week.
Fantastic. So that's going to wrap it up for this week's edition of WordPress Weekly. I wanted to say that next week, on the 15th, we're going to have Adam Warner on the show, who did WPModder.com for a while, and he is actually the WordPress evangelist for a company called SiteLock, which deals with securing websites and whatnot. So we're going to have him on the show to talk about his position there, his experience in the WordPress community, and what the heck a WordPress evangelist is. Someone like me, I have no clue what that is.
I think I'm a WordPress evangelist, but nobody pays me for it. What's going on?
Yeah.
If you need a WordPress evangelist, I'm available.
We'll talk a little bit about that. This weekend, I'll be at WordCamp Northeast Ohio at Kent State, or the city of Kent, Ohio. Looking forward to that. Can't wait to meet some WordPress peeps, and that's what I'll be doing this weekend. Other than that, just run-of-the-mill stuff here. Just keep making sure the tavern satisfies everyone's thirst. We even include non-alcoholic beverages as well. So there you go. That's going to do it for this edition of WordPress Weekly. You can find show notes for this episode and all previous episodes on WPTavern.com. And you can follow me on Twitter at Jeffrush, JEFFR0, and Marcus.
You can find me at marcuscouch.com and membershipcoach.com, and on Twitter at marcuscouch.
And until next week, when we have Adam Warner on the show, everybody enjoy the rest of your week. Get through hump day, and we'll talk to you again soon. Stay safe out there.